that you have, start contacting your family, start thinking about where you're going to go and how you're going to go there. We will be putting in lane reversals as we do that. There will be certain evacuation routes you want to take. I would ask everybody to go to www.scemd.org. You will click at the top on Hurricane Matthew. Then you will click on Know Your Zone, and you'll type in your address. It will tell you exactly how you evacuate from the area that you're in. So that's extremely important that we want you to do that. I do think that while we are going to have 712 troopers that will be assisting tomorrow during the evacuations, we'll also have 1,543 other law enforcement officers, 1,400 plus local officers, local law enforcement. So we're looking at about 3,700 that are going to be on the roads to assist you, not counting the National Guardsmen. There will be comfort stations along the way, which will allow you to get water and also use the restroom if you need to. There are going to be, basically you're going to see National Guardsmen and law enforcement at all points as you make your evacuation through that process. It's not going to be a fast evacuation, but what we ask is that you be patient and understand that it could take up to several hours, but we are making all the plans to make sure that everyone is going to be able to move safely, move as quickly as possible, and get themselves out. What we'd ask is if you can leave early, do that. You know, the goal is always not to all leave at once. We're looking at probably doing that evacuation at 3 o'clock. That could change. But as of now, if things continue on as the way they are, it will be a 3 o'clock evaluation going forward. But like I said, we will confirm that tomorrow morning as we get more information, especially on our next call. I think we will be there. We have been asked to move residents from Charleston, and so for the Charleston evacuation, I want to thank Greenville County because they are giving us 235 regular school buses as well as 108 special needs school buses, which is going to allow us to move those residents from Charleston into the upstate as well. I believe I have covered everything. You know, the main thing I want to say is we've been through winter storms, we've been through a 1,000-year flood. A hurricane is different. And so I don't want anybody to look at any of the last few tragedies that we have gone through and think that this is similar. We need you to understand, get all of the paperwork that is important to you and make sure you take it. Make sure you notify your family and know where you're going because we want to make sure that you have a place to stop. This will be going into the weekend. So we ask that once you get to your destination, stay there. Once you get home, if you're in the Midlands, stay there, because the goal is to take as many cars off the roads as we can and to be as safe as we possibly can. What I will tell you is these storm surges are not to be messed with, so when you live on the coast, please heed caution and follow through with the evacuations that we ask you to do. When you're in the Midlands, be conscious of the fact we're going to have a lot of moving traffic, so as much as you can stay off the roads, that's helpful. That's why we're closing those government offices and the schools to make sure that we can handle that accordingly. And we will continue to give you updates on a regular basis so that you know what to expect and when to expect it. But South Carolina is strong. I am very proud of Team South Carolina. They are ready. We have dotted every I and crossed every T, and that doesn't mean there won't be hiccups, but we're ready, comfortable, and we know that everything's in place to go so that everybody can get to where they need to go safely. And with that, I will open it up with any questions that you may have.
What kind of equipment, supplies, things like that are planned to be moved to the coast and when?
So I know they've already asked for 1,700 sandbags to be sent to Georgetown. They've asked for the buses to go to Charleston. We're doing that. DOT is getting all of their equipment in place as needed. And then I think also National Guard, they've made sure that they have any of our aircrafts that are needed. They've leaned on Tennessee and Kentucky to get those.
Governor, why tomorrow afternoon? Why start then?
Because when we look at the timeline, the amount of time it's going to take to move 1 million plus people off the coast, that's the way we can do it safely, and that's the way we can do it to where everybody is most comfortable. That is the key, is we want to be safe, but we also want to make sure it's not a frustrating situation for people. So that doesn't mean that you will get to where you want to go quickly. It will take several hours, but what we are asking is look at 100 miles from the coast and make sure you get out of harm's way, and we'll do that. And so really closing the The schools is because we're going to need shelters. Closing the government offices is to take the traffic off the roads. What we don't want is a big bottleneck at Malfunction Junction tomorrow, and that would very well happen if we had everybody coming through at that time.
At what point do you plan on closing or reversing lanes on I-26? And will that be from Charleston to where?
I'll let Director Smith.
The plan now is to go to a lane reversal tomorrow at 3 p.m. We'll have assets in place, and for the I-26 corridor, US 21 in Beaufort, as well as US 278 in Hilton Head, those lanes will be reverted.
Senator Haley, what's going to be the protocol or the process for removing college students, particularly for those who aren't from this area?
Well, I think all university presidents, they always make their recommendations based on what the school districts do. So I think you'll see that a lot of universities will follow that. They have in the past. They've either followed government offices or they've followed school districts, and so I would expect them to do the same.
Governor, there's the USC-Georgia game on Saturday night. Do you have any input or say in that, or is that a complete decision based on the SEC and USC?
It's a complete decision based on the schools, but as of now, I can't imagine that happening. But certainly, we're going to continue to watch this. Look, I would love nothing more than to see this just suddenly, take a right-hand turn and go out to sea. But, as it looks right now, we're looking at Friday night into Saturday, or Friday afternoon into Saturday, being pretty brutal.
Governor, is this at this point, is it a voluntary evacuation of coastal communities or mandatory?
So we don't do voluntary or mandatory anymore. An evacuation is an evacuation. So if we tell you that we want you to realize that if things stay the same, we're going to look at a 3 o'clock evacuation, that is what it is. So what we are asking is, if you can leave sooner, make sure you have a full tank. I can't say that enough. But also, we don't want a whole surge of moving at the same time. So that's why we're trying to give this information out now.
There's still some uncertainty in the storm track. Are you in any way worried that maybe you're calling an evacuation everything a little bit too early at this thing because this thing hasn't started that kind of final movement yet? So
what we have seen is that it's hugging that coastline pretty good, and a lot of our South Carolina coast is exposed. We will let you know if that 3 o'clock is pulled back. I will not hesitate pulling back on the 3 o'clock, but right now, based on what we know now, it's the responsible thing to do to go ahead and focus on those evacuations. I hope that I can pull that back tomorrow, but I want people to be prepared. I want them to know what I know when I know it, and so this is the best way to communicate to the citizens of the state what we think needs to happen.
do you have any worries that you may end up with a situation like before? Do you think the lane reversals and everything are going to help out with the massive backups and the 24 hours people spend on the highway during Floyd?
Without question. I mean, if you talk to DOT or any of our law enforcement, Director Smith with DPS, everybody has done their homework. Everybody knows exactly how this needs to be done. The reversals will start right at 3 o'clock should we go forward. I have faith and confidence in my team and in all that we've discussed with multiple conference calls that we're ready to go.
Are there shelters being set up or activated?
Yes, so you will see multiple shelters set up, and we'll have more information on that tomorrow.
Governor, what advice would you give the elderly or those who may not have access to social media, or they may be sticker shut? Any advice that...
So this is where I'm going to ask South Carolinians to really do what we've always done. It's neighbors taking care of neighbors.
Well, anyway, Donald Trump at first, he shocked Wall Street. Wall Street did a swan dive before rallying back to record highs. And boy, they just keep going higher and higher. Steve Ratner has a new look at how the markets are gauging the economic trends. And let's start with the rally after Donald Trump's win, because we heard, it's so funny, Donald Trump said this was going to be Brexit times 5. Well, a lot of people thought that the markets would collapse.
So this is where the market, even the experts were wrong, because the experts predicted the market would collapse. And in fact, on election night, if you were watching, the Dow actually went down 700 points when it first looked like...
futures, right.
The futures, when it first looked like Trump was going to win, and then it just turned around and went from there. And so you can see starting on November 8th, what happened, which was that the market, which had been going up a little bit, just took off, and it's up 3.1% since Election Day. And not only is the S&P, which is what this is, at a record, but so is the Dow, so is the NASDAQ, and that's the first time that's actually happened since 1999. And what really happened was the market woke up and realized that they had elected an enormously pro-business president, one who's going to cut taxes on business, one who's going to ease regulation, one who's going to make it a lot easier for companies to make profits. And so if you look
by the way, really quickly, as we go to the second chart, just it looks like Nikki Haley is in fact going to be a cabinet level UN ambassador.
I think they generally have always been cabinet level.
Okay.
But she's, it was
just confirming.
It's confirmed that she's
from people. You don't. It doesn't have to be confirmed if you don't want it confirmed. We don't have to confirm it.
Let's confirm it, because Alex just in 90 seconds. Can I have my last 90 seconds?
Go for it. Markets, winners and losers, go.
Maybe you want to
all right.
Maybe you don't.
We're going to talk about rabbits some more.
Yes.
Okay, rabbits.
Sorry.
Tell me, have you ever?
So why did the stock market go up? What went in?
Why? Tell us, Steve.
So look. So if you look at some of the specific sectors, you can see how they relate to the kinds of things Trump's talking about. He's talking about infrastructure. So steel is up 25%. He's talking about loosening regulations on drilling for oil and gas. So oil services, which is what that is up 13%. He's talking about loosening regulations on banks, but also interest rates have been going up. And we'll get to that in a second because of banks, because of Trump. Very good. He's talking about bringing back coal. So coal is up. He's talking about spending more on defense. And down at the bottom here, he's talking about giving the drug companies a bit of an easier hand.
So can I ask you about hospitals?
Yes.
Obviously, there's going to be some sort of health care reform. Why do you see pharma going up a little bit? And why do you see hospitals going down? Most healthcare providers I've talked to see this change as a positive.
So for pharma, for biotech, for folks like that, it's good because they'll have less regulation and they'll be able to raise prices more. The potential repeal of Obamacare worries people about hospitals because you'll have fewer people insured, fewer people who go into hospitals with insurance, and that actually ends up costing the hospitals money. So the last thing that I just want to talk about is what happened to interest rates. Because just as the stock market took off, the bond market also said to itself, hey, wait a minute, this is a big change in life for us. Because what Trump's tax cuts mean, almost certainly, are much larger deficits, and larger deficits mean higher interest rates. So judging by the 10-year Treasury, interest rates went up 0.5 percentage point almost immediately after Trump's election.
So can I ask you a question?
0.5 percentage point is a lot.
Yeah,
it will show up in your mortgages.
Yeah, let me ask you really quickly.
Sure.
If you were an investor, and you are an investor, and you wanted to invest in knowing that deficits were going to explode and the national debt was going to explode, because it is, what would your investment be?
Okay.
No, I'm asking. What do you invest in if you know that we're going through? It's going to be deficit spending over the next 4 years. There's going to be no restraint.
Right. So what you invest in are the kinds of things that basically the money's going to go to, which is going to be these heavy infrastructure-related things. Interest rates are going to go up. That's good for banks, so banks are likely going to go up some more. General deregulation of business. For example, the cable stocks went up a lot because of the idea that he was not going to impose net neutrality on the internet. Right. That's good for the cable guys.
So, like companies like Caterpillar, GE.
Caterpillar stock is up something like 13%.
Just exploding because
is up something like 13% since the election.
What about the failing New York Times?
The failing New York Times.
Because now we understand it's the
failing New York Times.
No, we're not failing. We are a great jewel.
No, the failing New York Times added more new digital subscribers in the week after Trump elected than any other week since it started.
Up next, Frank Bruni takes us in.
Coming from the Russians was that the non-permanent members had put forward a possible compromise. Well, not even a half hour later is when word came that the U.S. had launched these